Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hey everybody, glad to have you back here today on the Cabral Concept Podcast. This is episode 2722. For all the show notes, the research links, and much more, check out stephencabral.com/2722. Let's dive into today's show. We're going to be talking about how high-intensity interval training can actually have a different effect on the body, believe it or not, even if it's the same exact workout, if you do it in the morning, right after breakfast, or about an hour after breakfast, versus mid-afternoon. So let's go through what the research shared on that and how you could potentially use this to your advantage. All right, I'm going to give you the exact research study right now. It's called Afternoon Exercise is More Efficacious Than Morning Exercise at improving blood glucose levels in individuals with type 2 diabetes, a randomized crossover trial. Why I wanted to share this with you here today is that I know it's been talked about a bit, and so I wanted to give a little bit of clarity around it, because how this study is titled is a bit misleading, because there's a difference between types of exercise. So for example, this is what's called high-intensity interval training. If you're not familiar with that, I've got lots of podcasts on this, but this is basically pushing your heart rate, pushing your body, whether it's sprinting on an exercise bike, running quickly, fast, or working out with weights at a high intensity, but you're getting your heart rate above 80% of your max VO2. And that basically just means, like, on a rate of perceived exertion, you cannot have a normal conversation or really string together more than a sentence before having to catch your breath, right? So you can't talk to the person next to you cycling or running or exercising and be able to carry on a conversation. It's actually going at almost all out pace, right? So you can't really talk. All right. So that's the intensity that they went through. Now, that's one type of exercise, right? Like, that's high intensity. But there is actually a different type of exercise, which is more aerobic based, so not anaerobic, which is basically using more glucose or carbohydrates as a fuel system versus using maybe more oxygen, fatty acids, etc. And that is more aerobic based. I've gone through this in detail before, so I'm not going to necessarily go too deep on the forms of exercise. Happy to provide a lot of free podcasts on that today at episode 2722. But what I want to share is that the results are actually different based on just walking or light cardio, which actually does lower blood sugar levels. So keep in mind, the type of exercise matters. They're both fantastic. I believe that we need both, but we want to be careful as to how we qualify that, because it's not all exercise that may increase blood sugar. All right, so what did the study share with you? It's a fascinating study to read. If you like reading research, I'm going to link it up here for you today, because this was a very approachable study in terms of reading and science behind it. I have the, you know what? I can actually give you the larger study that was done. I have a lot more data on that. So I'd love to be able to share that with you, because I think it's a little bit more interesting as well to go deeper. So here's what they found, though. I'm going to give you the summary, and again, you can check it out if you'd like. This was a small study, so it should be done in a larger population. Yes, I agree, but it was very well done. So that's the thing. Even though it was a small study, they told you exactly who the participants were, how many completed the study, and it was done in a very precise manner. So here's what they did. They used men with type 2 diabetes. Okay, so they did have type 2 diabetes. They already had blood sugar issues. However, it was being managed with metformin and with one specific type of diet. Okay, so here's what they found. They found that was the exercise, a 7-minute warm-up, followed by a 1-minute sprint plus 1 minute off, repeated 6 times, so that's their high intensity interval training workout. You may not seem like a lot, right? Like, oh, well, it's only 6 sprints, right? But keep in mind, an all-out 1-minute sprint is actually hard work on the body. Think about it. A Tabata is 8 20-second sprints. I know it's only 10 seconds of recovery, but you're talking about a 4-minute workout, right? So a 12-minute workout where it's 6 of those as 1-minute sprints. I don't know if you've ever tried to do an all-out 1-minute sprint. It's challenging, right? So that's a workout. So it's 12 minutes plus 7, 19 minutes total was their workout. 7-minute warm-up, 6 sprints. Again, if you're looking to repeat this yourself or even try it out, which again, you could. I'm not giving you any medical advice here, of course, of anything like that, medical treatment plans. But they did this workout at 2 times during the day. So they had one group. Now, both groups got to do this. That's why it was a great study. So one group did this 1 hour after breakfast. It was a light breakfast, okay? And it was done 1 hour later. And then the other group did it 3 hours after lunch. And the lunch, not necessarily a health lunch. It was just, but they had the same thing each time. So that's how they kept it standardized. It was basically a sandwich and juice. That was their lunch. So here's what they found though. By doing these sprints 1 hour after breakfast, it actually raised glucose levels. It raised blood sugar levels by about 6 or 7 points, like 6 or 7 millimoles, which is very interesting, right? But if they did it mid-afternoon, it actually lowered their glucose levels. So the morning workout raised blood sugar, and the afternoon workout, 3 hours after their lunch, lowered their glucose levels. So according to this study, doing high-intensity interval training in the morning may elevate blood sugar levels. I'm going to go a little bit deeper on that in just a second. And doing an afternoon workout may, and at least in this study, lowered blood sugar levels. How do they know it wasn't just the people that did the morning versus the afternoon? Well, again, it was a well-done study. They had the group after, I believe it was 2 weeks, do what's called a 2-week washout. So they didn't exercise, they didn't follow that specific regimen for that, and then they took the afternoon group and they moved them in the morning. Same diet. They took the morning group and then they moved in the afternoon. And so they got those averages and it showed the same in each group. So that's the nice thing about it. It wasn't just the individual. They had about a dozen individuals, not a lot. I understand that. And only 10 actually finished all of the different workouts. But at least we have the semblance of a well-controlled study that we could repeat at a larger scale. Now, here's the nice thing. You can do this on your own. That is the amazing thing about the time we live right now, is that you can run this own clinical trial yourself. You can just use a continuous glucose monitor, which is exactly what these participants did, and you'll be able to see what affects your blood sugar in terms of your workouts. Because I've talked about this for years now, and the only reason I know this is simply because I worked with diabetics, type 2 diabetics, and general population on what elevated their blood sugar levels and what lowered it. And what I can tell you for sure is that what helped the most was actually aerobic-based cardio in terms of lowering glucose. And I found that myself. A brisk walk or going out for a jog or a bike lowers blood sugar levels, whereas something more intense, and I'm going to give my theory as to why this may be, because the study didn't say why this happened. They just told you that it did happen. And I can absolutely share with you that when my type 2 diabetic clients did a boot camp or a high-intensity interval training workout, it usually elevated their blood sugar levels. Now, the interesting thing is I didn't have many people doing it mid-morning because these were people typically working between 9 and 5, but they would do it at 7 a.m. or they would do it around 8 p.m., 7 p.m. at night. Neither one, in terms of high intensity for the type 2 diabetics I work for, did a great job. Now, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do high intensity interval training. I think there's a time and place. But what did work for them, if we were just looking at just glucose levels alone, was more of the aerobic-based cardio. I found that fascinating because that wasn't necessarily what I would have thought coming out of the gates. Now, here are some of my theories, at least one of which are backed up at least by an assumption by one of the authors of the study. So here's what I want to share with you. You can drink black coffee with no carbs or anything like that in the morning, and it can spike glucose levels. I have a whole podcast on will coffee spike your glucose levels. Again, you'll only know by using a glucose monitor or glucometer, a very inexpensive one, or the ones that I use with my clients, myself, and in my practice. And I can link that up for you today. So that's at stephencabral.com/2722. By the way, I'm always looking to get you the least expensive and absolute best continuous glucose monitors right now. As of the recording of this show, it'll change in a year or two from now, but the Freestyle Libre 3 is the one that I'm currently using. I'll always give you the most current recommendation, and that will be at stephencabral.com/resources. But head on over to today's show. That's just 2722. And I'll just share with you the one that I use. Now, you don't have to use that, of course. You can use a $20 one from Amazon or from your local pharmacy, and you can get a glucometer and do that as well. That's okay. That works. So here's what I want to share with you, though. Drinking coffee early in the morning, doing a cold plunge early in the morning, doing sprints early in the morning can further spike cortisol levels and norepinephrine. We know that it does that, right? I mean, that's one of the ways cold plunges work, right? For better or for worse, it spikes norepinephrine. High-intensity interval training spikes norepinephrine, right? That's a stress hormone or a stress neurotransmitter that gets the heart rate going, gets you into that fight or flight, right? And there's pros and there's cons to that, right? For more of the endomorphic body type, they could greatly do well with that. The Vata body type, not so much, right? The ectomorph, that would not be very good for them. So that's why, we can personalize things based on the individual. It's not an all-for-one based approach. So it's my opinion that this could further spike cortisol levels. And if you spike cortisol levels, you can expect, for the most part, blood sugar levels to spike as well, because cortisol is a glucocorticoid, which means its main job is to tell the liver, for the most part, to dump more sugar, glycogen, or convert more glycogen to glucose back into the bloodstream. The other could be that this was an aside on the study. They didn't talk too much about it, but both high-intensity interval training sessions elevated TSH. So TSH is thyroid-stimulating hormone. And again, if you look at the physiology of the body, in the short term, when you spike cortisol, your body's going to want to rev up metabolism, and that will typically your body will be asking for more thyroid. So that's not abnormal to me. Chronic stress in the long run depletes T4, T3, at least the conversion to that. So that was interesting as well. And again, I think that those two hormones are pretty much tied together. The neurotransmitters I've talked about a bit as well. But again, when you're spiking stress neurotransmitters, for the most part, it's norepinephrine that we're talking about. That can be an issue. And then I think the study raised an interesting point. Could high-intensity interval training cause faster gastric emptying? And all that means is, could high-intensity interval training, like for example, they were sprinting on a bike for 1 minute, could that cause the body to, at a much faster rate, digest or at least empty the contents from the stomach into the small intestine, the duodenum, to then be faster absorbed for fuel for the body, such as carbohydrates or glucose, to then be used for this fight or flight or this extra need for glycogen, or what's called faster glycolysis from exercise in the body, from anaerobic workouts. And I think that maybe that's a possibility as well. You'd actually have to look at the gastric emptying of the stomach, but that's worth noting. It really is. I would love to see one additional group where you did a fasted workout, HIIT in the morning, did that raise or elevate blood sugar with no food in your stomach, then the 1 hour after breakfast, and then the mid-afternoon, which was the 3 hours after lunch, because it's not a 1-for-1 when you're doing it 3 hours away from a meal versus just 1 hour away from a meal. And then it also matters what that meal is. The more fiber, the more protein, well, it's going to be slower digesting, right? So I think all of that matters. What I do know is that this was a well-done study. If you were to look at this specifically and you wanted to follow this at face value, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I actually recommend it to my weight loss clients and to my clients that are looking at body transformation, improving their glucose, is actually to do AM fasted cardio. So this is basically when you go for a walk or go for a brisk walk, you go a light jog and cycling, whatever you want it to be, and that's on an empty stomach and you're still in a fasted state. So these are, again, I'm not giving you medical advice, medical treatment plans, medical cures, medical diagnosis, but for clients that I work with and they have elevated blood sugar levels, like above 100 for us when you wake up in the morning, okay, we want to bring that down. And high intensity interval training, I have not seen to be a good way to actually lower that. I've actually seen that can increase hunger, not right away, but like an hour or two later. So I like to just ease into the day, get more aerobic based, and then we can break our fast about an hour or so after that. And then I do like, if possible, so again, could you walk in the morning? I don't know, because I don't know your schedule, right? But the thing is, like, if we can wake up a little bit earlier, we can do these things just for 30 minutes or so. And then in mid-afternoon, that is a lot of times a great time to be able to get in a workout. I know it's not going to work for everyone, so I can't say you have to do this. And if you're a healthy individual, none of this may matter. That's the truth. And you get in a workout when you can get in a workout, because obviously it's better to work out than not to work out. And I think we can just tweak the diet a bit in order to help with those glucose levels too. So hopefully this was helpful. The 3 big takeaways from today, the actual research link. I'm going to try to give you the full research link so you can actually look at the entire article, as well as the continuous glucose monitor that I like, will be at stephencabral.com/2722. Take care, everybody. Have an amazing day. I'll talk with you soon. Ever wonder what the best sauna, blue blockers, sleep trackers, wake lights, salt lamps, or other health gadgets are? Or what about the top non-toxic mattresses, sheets, soaps, bath products, toothpaste, and cookware? Or would you like to know the cleanest choices for hemp parts, meal delivery services, supplements, and much more? I personally curated, researched, and now created a resource page of all of my top picks that continues to grow each week. These are the exact products I use in my own life, with my family, in my private practice, and they're the ones I trust. To find out all of my up-to-date recommendations and all the details, simply head on over to stephencabral.com/resources.